Good evening, welcome to the Evening Review. Now, before we go into our interview this evening with Mr. Kaviwa Mahongora, the Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress of Namibia, about visits we've seen from non-bargaining entities to workplaces, we are having a look at our headlines first. SME poultry producers should come to the commercial table. Poultry producers on a small scale have been urged to come to negotiating tables with commercial entities. The Health Ministry's procurement chaotic. The IPPR, Institute of Public Policy and Research, have raised red flags about the procurement system of the Health Ministry. Young farmer plants 50,000 dry land maize per hectare. A young local farmer has invested in planting maize, 50,000 dry land maize per hectare, and it's never been done before. Welcome back. Now, as I've said, we are going to speak to Mr. Mahongora about recent visits we've seen by the Revolutionary Union that is affiliated to the Affirmative Repositioning, AR, as well as now recently the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters, which is a political party. We've seen these entities visiting companies, basically ambushing them after they've received complaints from workers without going through what people call the proper channels. Mr. Mahongora, first of all, before we jump into that, please describe to us the labor relations in this country. What is the state of labor relations in Namibia, and what is our biggest challenge at the moment?
Yeah, the biggest challenge with regard to the labor market is a high rate of informalization. The latest statistics prove that there is a serious increase in informal sector, and recently in Swakopmund, Namibia Statistics Agency launched a report that was mapping various businesses, and it was proven that the region that have most businesses is Omusati region. That's already tell you, and there is no bigger formal companies or operations that are happening in the Omusati region, but it's having most businesses. What kind of business that are there? Automatically you see already that it's an informal sector. So that tells you that the biggest challenge now that we face is that many workers are working informally, and if you're working informally, you will not enjoy the traditionally believed rights, like the right to collective bargaining, the right to affiliation and to expressions. So that is the biggest aspect that we are facing with. Now the Labour Act is only now, catering for small proportions of workers that are working in the formal sectors. But not also forgetting that even in the formal company there are informal workers. So that is the biggest arrangement that is there. But of course, hopefully with the amendment of the Labour Act, this position will be reversed. And not only that, even the requirements that was given for the workers to enjoy the right to bargain, where they say a specific union must have X percentage for those workers to enjoy the bargaining rights, that already also have kept a big chunk out of the rights for them to enjoy the right of collective bargaining. So that's why we only find few unions and few companies that have what you call or attempt to be regarded as a recognition agreement with specific companies.
Now, before we jump into the actual purpose of this interview, I find what you've just said very interesting. Could it also be that workers have left formal employment because they've lost faith in trade unions and even the systems, like you've said, the protection that is given in formal employment? Do you think that they've left because they've lost faith?
No, they haven't lost because they lost faith in trade union. They have lost the formal employment because of the economy that is performing very poorly. And as a result, there is no growth in manufacturing. There is no proper coordination in foreign direct investments. And so, and the population is increasing. Job creation is not there. So anyone end up starting to establish a small business where you can. So you have seen that even over the years, which company, big company, they say that Namibia is also in Namibia that created what numbers of employment. What we foresee now is the fishing sectors under the tremendous actions we went through. It even pushed a considerable number of percentage into informal sector through the fish rot scandals where workers have lost employment. So all those kind of things have nothing to do with the trade union. However, the problem is that the workers that are working in the formal sectors or that are members of trade unions are so heavily regulated to the extent that it even becomes difficult for trade union to infiltrate some places where there is abuse of workers' rights. In the sense that the Labour Act prescribes that if you are a registered trade union and you are not having a bargaining status, you can only meet the workers after working hours. That is what the Labour says. Now, only if you have the bargaining status, you can meet them during working hours. And how many companies are having that arrangement with the trade union are very small portions. So as a result of that one, many companies are misusing those opportunities because if a registered trade union want to enter workplace, you must be governed by the Labour Act.
Okay. Now, jumping right into the purpose of this interview, like I've said, we've seen this trend of the Revolutionary Union, which is not yet recognized, registered by the Labour Commissioner, and now the political party, Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters, just arriving at companies, bombarding business owners with questions or allegations without calling for an interview first. What do you make of that as a trade unionist and also as a labour expert?
Yeah, for me, I don't regard any approach to be wrong, as long as the approach it is going to yield the desired results. That is one. For any other entity which is not trade union to visit any workplace, I don't think that even those entities, they will be in a better position in terms of doing so, because they are not under the obligations and the rules that are set by the Labour Act. So for any entity to enter any employment and carry out any advocacy or raising any awareness on any particular issues, I don't think that should bother me and you. What is most important aspect is that every person should have access to any place where you are required. And when you go to a political party for that matter, they are better positions because they are required to contribute to a debate in Parliament on behalf of the Namibian people.
Yes, of course.
And how can they effectively and efficiently contribute if they are unable to visit some of the places where they can take touchable and scientific examples and evidence which can assist them to advance their debate in Parliament. So the issue here is not about whether they are registered or not registered, whether they are bombarding or not bombarding. The approach is just an approach. As long as it will produce the desired results that will move Namibia forward. Okay.
Now, yes, so you don't see anything wrong with that. So in a situation like that, we've seen some of the interactions becoming near violent. What is the right of the employer during such when people just arrive on their premises without an appointment, without having notified them prior to that, or especially when serious allegations are raised?
The employer have all the rights. Number one is to tell the people to leave his premises. If they are not refusing, the law enforcement agencies are there. Two, you have a right to call those people inside. They sit around the table. He or she listens to them and they resolve the matter. Three, you have a right to say that I'm not going to talk to you or comment on those kind of things. So I think that every person has the right to do so. And equally, the other party also have a right to come and hear the employer sides. If I am reported that there is a mistreatment or mishandling of worker or any other person, even animals. If you reported that at this farm there is someone who is mistreating animals, any person has the right to come and see how brutal is that individual is. So I don't see any problem with those kind of things. The most important aspect is that we are dealing with one thing, and each and every establishment or institution has various different approach on that specific aspect. As long as those approach are not infringing in someone's rights or threatening any person's life. But some people, they take things out of proportions, and they end up believing that the arrival of it's a violence, those kind of things. Myself, I went through that processes. There are specific schools or specific regions that apparently I'm not allowed to operate, where I come at the institution and apparently have to get permission from head office in Windhoek. Imagine those kind of things. So for me, when I'm seeing this one, I know that a few years ago I went through the same process, and so also the representative organizations that we are heading went through the same process.
Now, I want you to elaborate on that, but before that, please, let's go for a break. Now, Mr. Kaviwa, before we went for the break, you highlighted that when entities arrive at business premises without permission, they have the business owner has the right to remove them from the premises. However, can you please explain to us? There's been very serious allegations in the past, allegations of maltreatment, assault, especially some of the Chinese business owners have been accused of very serious human rights abuses. So if, say, the Revolutionary Union and NEF, which is a political party, and like you've said, that have the right to collect evidence, if they come there with these serious allegations, don't they have the right to insist on evidence?
Oh, they have the rights to insist on anything, but make sure that your rights does not interfere with another person's right.
The concern is
because
just
remember that there is no person under Article 12 of the Namibian Constitution have to be forced to give any incriminating statements.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So you cannot come at the person and say that you give a statement, give a statement, give a statement.
Yes.
That's why even if you are taken, you have been a suspect of murdering someone, when you come at the police station, they ask you, are you willing to give your statement now, or you're going to give in court? So everybody, when you come at the workplace, you should know that that person has a right to say, I'm not going to comment on it, or I'll comment on it. So you can't keep a gun on employer's head and say that, can you comment on this allegation?
Yes.
So what is most important, as much as everybody has the right for any protections as workers, the employers have those kind of rights.
Yes.
But the most important thing is that we need to inculcate the culture of social dialogue.
Yes.
We should dialogue, and we should dialogue. So in some instances, some organization, the extent a humble request that I want to come and visit your company on ABCD, but then employers become arrogant that you cannot come to the company. So if I adhere to that arrogance and adhere to it, then those people, I will leave them vulnerable. So that's why you might force yourself through to go and see what is happening behind the curtains for you to have the positions to move forward. So the most important thing is, if the employer have reacted positively to that humble letters to say that I want to come and visit your company on ABCD, I'm sure that the push and pull will not be there. Okay.
Now, we have seen that especially the Revolutionary Union's intervention has become very popular. At least the RU has become popular amongst workers. and they've been called on by so many workers in the last few months. Is this an indication that labour inspectors are not doing their job, or that there's a void that they have left open?
I'm not sure whether it's indication whether they have not doing their job. The question whether they were informed of any unfortunate happening at a specific employment place. That is one. Two is also the issues of rules and regulations. Are they mandated to intervene in some of these cases or not? Three, the question comes, who should bring this kind of abuses to light? Are they or not? So we need to look at, because there could be a labour inspection, but there could also be limitations, legal limitations to some, or to take some of the actions. Because I know that even they are given a straightforward mandate by the Labour Act that they have to enforce the award. For them to go and enforce that awards, the procedures that were put there even frustrate the very same labour inspectors, as they equally frustrate the trade union.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of things are the one that are frustrating the system. Hence, some of the organizations that are not covered they're not covered or governed by those bureaucratic rules and whatever are put in place,
yes,
get it right.
Yes.
Because they just jump the queue and the act. And at least in some instances, those kind of actions also it results, because there are some of the employers that they repent from what they've been doing. Mm-hmm. Some of them, they have changed the environment. Some of them, they even started respecting trade unions after that radical approach.
Mm-hmm. Now, lastly, in the past, trade unions have been accused of selling out workers. Do you think that the reliance on RU and now the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters, which is a political party, is an indication that workers have lost their trust in trade unions?
No, the workers that have been assisted by those organizations are not members of those organizations.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a question of, because even trade unions were encouraged to build strategic alliance. So even those companies that are being assisted through that mechanism, you end up receiving invitations, trade union, from those people that now, at least our employer is listening, now you can come and recruit us and let us join that union. So in some instances, we can, as a trade union, strategically cooperate with them, use them in that, and then you come and help and all those kind of things. So I don't see any that unions have lost trust or workers have lost trust when this is doing that, but I'm seeing it's a complementary task. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, as a trade union, our hands are seriously cut. We can't add beyond that. If you add beyond that, you will be brought under Section 50 of the Labour Act of unfair labour practices towards the colleague and all those kind of things. But under which clause will NEF be brought and whatsoever? It could be another, maybe criminal, because you have touched someone's property or other, it's different things. So those are the arrangements that is in place. So I see these kind of interventions as complementary, not as interventions that are bringing friction between those establishments and trade unions.
Thank you very much for joining us and for your insight, Mr.
Thank you very much for inviting me. We'll meet again.
Good night. Thank you for tuning in.